All right, so welcome to another deep dive. Today we are doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a bit special.
It's a bit special. We're kind of doing a relaxed book club kind of vibe.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, just the three of us. You, me, and this book right here.
That's right.
Suzanne Collins, The Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games? Yes.
Trilogy Book 1. We're going to be taking it slow. We're going to be really kind of going in depth.
Yeah.
And really kind of savoring this one.
I love it. This is going to be fun. This is a great book to really kind of dig into and, just really like savor the details. Look at what Collins is doing.
Yeah.
Look at how she's constructing this world.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a classic for a reason, and it's so rich,
Yeah.
I mean, I have this copy right here, first edition on over 2008.
Oh, wow.
And I love revisiting it. So I think our mission today, right, is not just to remember what happens, because a lot of people have seen the movies, maybe they've read the book, but let's really understand why this works. Like, what is it about this world that Collins builds?
Yeah.
What is it about Katniss's journey that really grabs us? And then how do these themes, because they're so powerful, how are they relevant to you today?
Yes.
In 2025?
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that's really important to note right from the beginning, this says Hunger Games Trilogy, Book 1. We are just at the beginning of this world.
Oh.
So maybe we have some future deep dives in store for us.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Okay, so let's start by painting a picture of Panem. Collins kind of throws us into this nation. It was once North America.
Right.
And it's divided into the capital, which is the center of power, and then 12 districts.
Districts, yeah.
And immediately we are kind of given this feeling of haves and have-nots, extreme contrast.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we begin the story in District 12.
Yes.
And the difference between District 12 and the capital could not be more different.
Could not be more different.
Yeah.
District 12, nestled in Appalachia, and it's all about coal mining. And she really digs into the seam, the place where the majority of the miners live.
Yeah.
And you can almost feel that weight,
Yeah.
Of just like every day is a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a hard knock life. They're just trying to survive. But even if you go like more towards the center of District 12, you've got the town square, with the shops. And it can have this kind of like on market days, almost a holiday feel.
Yeah.
But even then, you always have the presence of the peacekeepers. You can't forget that you are under the control of the capital. Even have a nice day at the market.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about this initial setup? What strikes you about this world?
I think what jumps out to me is the way that the capital seems to almost deliberately keep this in balance, Like, take, for example, the tesserae, this idea that people can add their name more times to the reaping in exchange for grain and oil.
Yeah, it seems like such a small thing, right? Like, oh, here's a little bit of extra grain and oil to help your family. But like you said, I think Gail really kind of points this out, that it is a wedge, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes the people who need it the most, like those in the seam,
Right.
put their children at risk even more. And it could potentially, divide people within the district who can afford to not take the tesserae and those who have to. It's such a subtle form of control.
Yes, and it makes you complicit in the system.
Yeah.
You're benefiting from it, even though it's ultimately rigged against you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's creating dependency. And Gale, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
He sees right through it. He's like, this is about dividing us.
Yeah.
And then it all kind of culminates in this reaping ceremony,
Oh, yeah.
which is just, brutal
It's horrible.
by design.
Yeah.
And you've got every kid between 12 and 18. It's mandatory. They all show up. And it's just to select 2 teenagers to go and fight to the death in the Hunger Games. But I think what's even more chilling is how televised it is. It's not enough to just enact this punishment. They have to broadcast it.
Yes.
They're broadcasting the despair
Yes.
for their own amusement. What does that say about the capital's mindset?
It's dehumanizing. It's a way of showing them that they're powerless.
Yeah.
You can feel that dread in District 12 on Reaping Day. Collins talks about how the streets are deserted, everybody's kind of locked away,
Yeah.
just bracing themselves for the worst.
Yeah.
And even like the arrival of the Capitol camera crews, they're predatory.
Totally.
This whole thing is just so orchestrated. It's just to emphasize the Capitol's control.
And it's also symbolic, too.
Yeah.
You got the kids all separated by age. You've got those glass balls with the names in
Those
them.
lips of paper.
Yeah. And then you got Effie Trinket. And she is just so excited to be there. And it's just like this weird juxtaposition with the mood of everybody else.
Right.
And I think beyond even the spectacle of the reaping, we really get a sense of just like the daily struggle in District 12 through Katniss's experience, right?
Yeah.
Like food scarcity is just this reality.
Yeah.
And we learned about her father's skill as a hunter, which was forbidden,
Yeah.
but so essential for their survival. And he makes these bows, too, these beautiful bows that are so valuable. It's like resourcefulness and defiance, are tied together in this world.
Yeah.
And then there's the Hob, that underground market where people are trading. Like they need this whole other economy just to get by.
Yeah.
What do you think that says about the capital's role?
It says that there are cracks, Even in this oppressive system that they have set up, people find ways to get around it.
Yes.
To just get what they need. And it shows you their resilience,
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have the stark contrast of the capital itself.
Oh, yeah. Which is, Collins describes it as this magnificent, technologically advanced city, these buildings that are like shimmery and they're colored in these artificial colors.
I know, it's such a stark contrast, isn't it? It's like they're living in a completely different reality.
Yes.
In the capital, they have this obscene abundance of food.
They have everything.
They have everything.
Yeah.
And they just seem so carefree. And it's just this stark juxtaposition with what's happening in District 12 and all the bizarre fashion, the weird ways they change their appearances.
Right.
It's all about decadence.
Yeah.
And it's all about how detached they are
Yeah.
from reality.
Yeah.
Because for them, the Hunger Games are just entertainment.
Yeah, it's a game then.
But for the districts, it's just this brutal reminder of their subjugation.
Yeah.
So how do you think this disparity in living conditions, how does that affect the story?
It just creates this undercurrent of resentment.
And I think it's a really powerful motivation for rebellion.
For sure.
You see why the districts would be so angry at the Capitol?
Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a pretty good picture of Panem now.
Yeah.
And the difference between the Capitol and District 12. So let's dive into what actually happens in this story.
Yes.
Let's focus on those key moments for Katniss. And, it all starts with the reaping. Even though, we kind of know what's coming, Collins does such a good job of ratcheting up the tension.
Yeah.
Right? You've got Hamish Abernathy, the victor, stumbling onto the stage drunk. It's like this reminder of what winning even means.
Right.
And then you've got the mayor giving this really somber speech, and then Effie Trinket comes out, and she's, almost too perky.
Too cheerful.
Way too cheerful. And then the unthinkable happens. Primrose Everdeen.
Oh.
This innocent little girl, Katniss's sister.
Yeah.
Her name gets called. What's the impact of that moment?
It's the catalyst for the whole story. Katniss has that primal scream, Prim, and then just that desperate rush forward. I volunteer as tribute. It just doesn't happen in District 12.
It never happens.
No.
What does that tell you about her character?
Right away, you know that she's selfless, she's protective.
Yes.
And I think that moment right there kind of shapes the whole trajectory of the story.
Totally. You see how everybody reacts. Prim is terrified, obviously, and Gail's got those quiet words of support. Up you go, Catnip.
Yeah.
And even the crowd is silent. It's like they can't believe what they're seeing. And then you've got Effie Trinket, who's just like, oh, finally, something exciting is happening in District 12.
Right.
It's so messed up.
Yes.
But it really highlights, I think, the different perspectives of the capital versus the districts.
Yeah. So before Katniss gets whisked away to the Justice Building, we get this glimpse into her relationship with Gale. And it's clear that they have this very deep bond.
It's more than just friends.
It's more than just friends. They hunt together.
Yeah.
They clearly rely on each other. They understand each other. How does that relationship kind of inform Katniss's character and her motivations going forward?
I think the fact that they can talk in the woods.
Right.
And they both understand, how messed up things are.
Yeah.
They both see the Capitol's control, and they're both angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gale represents this connection to home, to this life that they've built together outside of the Capitol's, gaze.
Mm.
And he also, you can see how she has feelings for him. It's complicated, right?
Yeah.
But, you can see that he's important to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he really is a reminder throughout the book, even as things get more complicated, of what she's fighting for.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's what she wants to go back to.
Right. So then Katniss and Peeta are whisked away on this train to the Capitol.
Yes.
And it's sensory overload. I mean, the food alone, she's never seen this much food. And she's coming from a place where people are starving.
It's almost like it's cruel, right?
Yeah.
To just like rub it in their faces.
Yeah.
Look at all this abundance that you don't have. And this is where she starts interacting with PETA more.
Yeah.
It's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
They're both kind of figuring each other out. And I think on the train, it's interesting because they're forced to watch the recap of the reapings from all the other districts.
Right.
And it drives home the point that this is a show.
Yes.
And they are the players. And then Haymitch shows up.
Right.
And he is still kind of that cynical, drunk mentor.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have his act together.
No.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. And Effie is like constantly exasperated with him.
Yeah.
But you do get the sense that beneath all that, bluster and drunkenness, that he does have some knowledge.
Yeah.
That could be helpful. What's your first impression of PETA?
He seems a little bit more reserved than Katniss.
Yeah.
And maybe not as outwardly kind of, I don't know, hardened as she is. But I think he's also very thoughtful. You can tell that he thinks things through.
He's definitely observing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they arrive in the capital.
Yeah.
And it's just this overwhelming experience.
Oh, yeah.
The city is huge and everything's so bright and loud. And then she gets thrown to the prep team.
Yeah. Flavius, Octavia, and Navenia.
Yeah. They're just so focused on appearances. Right?
Yeah. It's all superficial.
It's all superficial. And I think it really highlights that capital obsession with the trivial.
Right.
Like they don't care about the brutal reality of the games. They just care about how things look.
Yeah.
But then we meet Cinna.
Yes.
Katniss's stylist.
Yeah.
And Portia, PETA's stylist. And it feels different, doesn't it?
It does.
Especially Cinna. He seems to get Katniss.
Yeah, he understands her.
He sees beyond the surface.
Yeah.
And of course, he designs that amazing girl on fire costume.
Yes.
For the opening ceremonies. It's so iconic. It's such a powerful image. And it instantly makes her stand out.
Yeah.
Like you can't take your eyes off of her. How important do you think that costume is?
I think it's huge. Not only does it grab the Capitol's attention, but I think it also sparks something in Katniss. She suddenly feels seen.
Yeah.
And I think it gives her a sense of presence,
Yeah.
that she's more than just a tribute
Right.
from this forgotten district.
Yes, totally. And then that chariot ride.
Yes.
Right? It's their first time really being seen by the Capitol.
Yeah.
And they are literally on fire.
Yeah.
District 12 is on fire.
Yeah.
And it makes an impact. And then they hold hands, this seemingly spontaneous gesture.
Right.
And the Capitol just eats it up.
Yes.
It creates this instant connection and intrigue. And it plants those first seeds of the star-crossed lovers narrative.
Yeah.
Even if Katniss doesn't fully realize what's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
So then they enter the training center.
Yeah.
Right. And they're learning all these survival skills.
Yep.
And Haymitch gives them some really crucial advice here. He's like, learn everything you can, but keep your strengths hidden. Don't show them what you can really do, especially not in these group sessions.
Yes.
So what do we see? We see Katniss with her bow and arrow.
Yeah.
And she's good. She's really good.
Yeah.
And PETA sees it. He's watching her.
Yeah.
But they're keeping it low key, following Haymitch's advice. And then you have that really pivotal scene.
Yes.
The private session with the game makers.
Yes.
Where Katniss gets frustrated.
Yeah.
And she shoots an arrow at their table.
Oh, yeah. That's a big risk.
It is a huge risk.
Yeah.
What do you think makes her do that?
I think it's a combination of her frustration. She feels like they're not paying attention to her. She's just another tribute,
Right.
And she's desperate to show them that she's a force to be reckoned with.
She wants to be seen.
She wants to be seen.
Yeah. And I think it's such a raw display of her spirit, And the fact that we don't know what the consequences are going to be just makes it even tenser.
Yeah.
And then the game makers give them their scores. And it's the first time we see how they are assessing the tributes, like how dangerous do they think each person is.
Right.
So then, we move on to the televised interviews.
Yeah. Yeah, with Caesar Flickerman.
Yeah, Caesar Flickerman, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where PETA drops the bomb.
Yes, that he's in love with Katniss.
Yeah.
I mean, she is shocked.
She is not expecting it.
I know.
And the Capitol audience goes wild.
Yes.
I mean, that was your initial reaction to that.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems so out of left field.
It does.
Yeah.
But then Haymitch is really quick to point out how smart it is.
Yes.
He's like, this is brilliant. This is going to get you sponsors. This is going to make people root for you. Right. And it's all about creating this narrative that can save their lives. And it forces Katniss to think about survival in a different way.
Yes.
She has to play a role now. It's not just about being strong and resourceful. It's about playing this game.
Yeah.
The game within the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So then we get to the moment that they enter the arena.
Yes.
And Colin just writes that fear and anticipation so well.
Yeah.
And then the gong sounds, and it's just chaos. It's that bloodbath at the cornucopia.
Yeah.
And Katniss, thankfully, remembers Haymitch's advice.
Run.
Run. Get away from the cornucopia. Don't get caught up in that initial fight.
Eh.
And it's a good thing she does. Because it's brutal.
Yes.
So in those first few days, what's she focused on?
She's focused on the essentials. Water, shelter.
Yes.
She's using her hunting and her trapping skills, things that she's learned in District 12 to stay alive. And every night the cannon fires.
Yeah.
It's this reminder, that people are dying.
Yeah, and the numbers are dwindling.
Yeah.
And this is where we're introduced to those career tributes.
Yeah.
From Districts 1 and 2.
Yeah, 4 sometimes.
Yeah, 4 sometimes. And they have been trained for this.
Their whole lives.
Their whole lives.
Yeah.
So they have a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Right? And then, talk about control.
Yes.
The game makers decide to create a firestorm.
Yeah.
To drive the tributes together.
Yeah.
Just another way of manipulating them. And Katniss gets burned.
Yes.
But then, a little glimmer of hope, her first sponsor gift arrives.
Yes.
The burn medicine.
Yeah.
Sent by Haymitch. So somebody's watching.
Yeah.
Somebody's rooting for her.
Yeah, and I think it shows that people are starting to see her.
Yeah.
As something more than just a tribute.
Yeah, exactly. And then comes one of the most important alliances, I think, in the book.
Yeah, with Rue.
Yeah, Katniss meets Rue.
Yeah.
This young, resourceful girl from District 11. And their connection is so genuine. It's built on this shared understanding of being vulnerable. And they protect each other. They look out for each other. Why do you think their alliance is so important?
It's important because it's a reminder that even in this horrible situation, people can still be good.
Yes.
And they can still find kindness and trust with each other.
Yes. And they come up with this really clever plan.
Yes.
To sabotage the career tribute supplies at the cornucopia.
Yeah.
Rue's a great distraction, and Katniss uses her archery skills to set off those mines that were set by the boy from District 3.
Yes.
And it's a small victory.
Yeah.
But it's a victory nonetheless.
It is. But as we know, it's short-lived.
Yes.
Rue is killed by Marvel.
Yeah.
And it's a devastating moment.
Heartbreaking. But Katniss's reaction, the way she grieves for Rue, she sings to her.
Yeah.
She covers her body in flowers. It's so powerful. It's like this act of defiance against the Capitol's cruelty.
Yes.
And then the gift of bread that she receives from District 11.
Yeah.
It shows how much her actions resonated with the people in the districts.
Yeah.
It's a moment of solidarity.
Yeah.
And then comes the twist. Claudius Templesmith announces that if the last 2 tributes standing are from the same district, they both win.
Yeah. That's a game changer.
It changes everything. Suddenly, it's not just about Katniss surviving.
Right.
It's about finding Peeta.
Yes.
And keeping him alive, too. And it really kind of kicks that whole romance angle that Haymitch has been pushing into high gear.
Yes.
So how do you feel about that rule change when you first read it?
I mean, it was exciting. It just kind of like injected this new element into the story. And, for Katniss, it gives her a reason to find Peeta.
Yeah.
And to try and, win together.
Yeah. And she does find him.
Yes.
But he is badly injured.
Yeah.
Camouflaged by the river. And we see this different side of Katniss.
Yeah.
She's nurturing him. She's using those skills that she learned from her mother to heal him.
Yeah.
And it's during this time that feigned romance,
Yeah.
it starts to become something real.
It does, yeah.
How do you see their relationship kind of evolving during this phase?
Well, I think because they're so vulnerable
Yeah.
and they're relying on each other to stay alive, it creates a space for genuine connection to happen.
Yes. And the lines between what's real and what's performance,
Right.
they start to get blurry,
Yes, they do.
don't they? And then the game makers announce the feast
Yes, at the cornucopia.
at the cornucopia.
Yeah.
And they're promising these supplies that they desperately need.
Yeah.
So Katniss knows she has to go,
She has to go, yeah.
even though it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And of course, she runs into Clove and Cato,
Yeah.
those career tributes,
Yes.
and she almost dies.
Yes.
Brutal, brutal scene. But then Thresh shows up,
Yeah.
and he remembers how Katniss treated Rue,
Yeah.
and he spares her,
Yeah.
and he kills Clove. It's like this moment of, like, unexpected mercy,
Yeah.
in the midst of all this horror.
Yeah.
It's like even in the games, there's still some sense of justice.
Right.
So she gets back to PETA
Yeah.
with the medicine. And their alliance is really solidified now.
Yeah.
And they have these really deep conversations. And PETA confesses that he's had feelings for her for a long time. It's not just a strategy for him anymore.
No.
And then the games are winding down.
Yes.
Katniss, PETA, Cato, they're the only ones left.
Yeah.
And that final confrontation,
Yes.
it happens at the cornucopia,
Yeah.
which is now this terrifying arena filled with those mutated creatures.
Yeah, the mutations.
The mutations. And what's so creepy is they resemble the fallen tributes.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the dead are coming back to haunt them.
Yeah.
It's really chilling. So what was it like for you to read that scene?
It's intense. It's scary. It's violent.
Yeah.
But I think it also shows how far these characters have come,
Yeah.
And how much they're willing to fight for each other.
And they do fight. I mean, PETA gets injured,
Mm-hmm.
protecting Katniss.
Yes.
And then she finally takes down Cato. But even then,
Yes.
there's this weird silence, like nobody's announcing a winner.
Right.
And then Claudius Templesmith comes back on and he says, just kidding, only one victor.
Yeah.
They changed the rules back.
Yeah.
Talk about a betrayal.
It's awful.
It's awful. So what do? Katniss and PETA, they decide to eat the Nightlock berries. Together. It's this ultimate act of rebellion.
Yeah.
They would rather die together
Yes.
than be pawns in the Capitol's game.
Yes. And it works.
It works.
They win.
They both win. The Capitol is forced to declare them both victors.
Yes.
Because they know that the audience would never forgive them if they let Katniss and PETA die.
Right.
So the aftermath is this whirlwind.
Yeah. Recovery, the interviews.
Yeah, they're trying to control the narrative. They're pushing this whole star-crossed lovers thing even harder now.
Right.
But when they go back to District 12,
Yeah.
there's so much tension.
Yes.
It's awkward with Gale.
Yeah.
Katniss is confused about her feelings for both PETA and Gale.
Yeah.
And then there's that final meeting with President Snow,
Yeah.
which is just chilling.
Yes.
He knows that she was putting on an act.
Yeah.
He sees right through her,
Yeah.
and he warns her
Yeah.
to be careful, to play the part.
Or else.
Yeah, and it just leaves you with this feeling of dread.
Oh, yeah.
Like they may have won the games, but they haven't won their freedom.
No, the fight is just beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we think about this book, I mean, there are so many powerful themes that Collins is weaving together.
Yeah.
So let's dive into a few of those and think about why they still resonate with us today.
Yeah. Okay.
So obviously, survival and sacrifice are at the heart of this story. I mean, Katniss volunteers for Prim,
Yeah.
and she's constantly fighting to stay alive in the arena. And I think it shows the lengths that we're willing to go to
Yeah.
protect the people we love,
Yeah.
even when we're faced with impossible choices.
Yeah. So how do you think that theme connects to our own lives? Obviously, we're not fighting to the death in a arena.
Right. But I think even in less extreme situations,
Yeah.
we all make sacrifices for the people we care about,
Yeah.
We make choices, we compromise. Sometimes we put ourselves at risk to
Yeah.
protect our loved ones. So I think that instinct, that fierce protectiveness that Katniss has, we all have that. Just maybe not on that scale, but
Right.
it's there. And then you have this other really powerful theme of social inequality and injustice,
Yeah.
which is just so evident in the difference between the capital and the districts,
Yeah.
especially District 12. And I think it really highlights that the capital's wealth and power come at the expense of the districts. They're
Yes.
literally exploiting them. So it creates this system where resentment and the desire for change, they're